Yo, mic check 1 2. Turn my headphones up. Can you hear me? Am I live? Am I good right now? You know what I'm saying? We are watching Talking with Child Mutilation Advocates Part 1 with Billboard Chris by James Klug. Shout out James Klug, the young G, you know what I'm saying? Doing the Lord's work out here. Let's see. Let's see what these people have to say. Now, he's obviously going all in child mutilation advocates, which I guess is actually a great way to put it, because you know what? Let me just get into the video before I get off into a tangent and then get myself banned.
He started to develop breasts just before he had the puberty blockers. So now he doesn't want those breasts. So he's 14.
And he's 14 right now, and he doesn't want.
14, and he wants the breast tissue removed from his top.
Okay. And you'd be okay with that?
I would. Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Because they know what's best for them.
Yeah.
What's going on, everyone? James Klug here. I am outside of the American Academy of Pediatrics Convention in Anaheim, California, where people have gathered to raise awareness about.
Of course, Anaheim, I guess right outside of LA, north of LA, I'm not sure, but that first lady, I mean, good job on the intro, because that was extreme. She's talking about a 14-year-old. She's calling him a boy who is starting to develop breast tissue at 14 years old, which makes sense. Maybe even seems a little bit late for a young lady, but whatever. That was extreme. I'm sure it's only going to get worse from there.
About the medicalization of children experiencing gender dysphoria or similar issues. Now, today I have the pleasure of highlighting someone that's been traveling all over the country to educate people about how children cannot consent to medical transition, and he's been incredibly effective. Billboard Chris, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm super stoked. We got about 40 supporters out here today spreading the truth about why we shouldn't be transitioning kids. So I'm looking forward to a great day of conversations.
Awesome. You ready to go talk to some people?
Let's do it.
Yeah, I'm sure they're ready to conversate.
Do it.
Let's do it.
Yo,
if Democrats have their way, you could be forced to have your child take a vaccine or be expelled from school.
But this
it's
looks like a
unproven
right-wing
that the benefit
ad.
outweighs the
And
risk.
shout out James Klug, by the
Republican
way,
governors
because,
are pushing back. Families have had
he
enough.
was one
Vote
of
Republican.
the people advocating for me to sign
Take
up
off
for
the mask.
YouTube Premium, which I will not do.
Look at your smile.
She may be.
All right, moving on.
Huge shout out to our friends over at MOSeek for sponsoring this video.
What's up, my friends? How's
Hey guys,
it going?
would any of you guys like to chat with us?
Wondering if you wanted to have a conversation today about any of this.
I do not.
How are you,
Good to
bro?
see ya.
Never met you. Crazy.
Out of our space.
Oh, are you pushing me? Why are you?
This is
Excuse
assault.
me, you
This
can't
is
push
actually
me.
assault.
Hey,
You can't get
pl-
physical.
excuse me.
Oh, is that I guess that's Jamie, maybe from The Gay Who Strayed, or Gays Against Gays. I think they were banned off Twitter. They were banned from PayPal or something. I think that's her, right? Am I tripping?
Jamie, good to see ya.
Jamie, yes, of course.
Do you have any words for the camera for our video?
Yes. Okay.
They're already just pushing him. They're already, The Gay Who Strayed. It looks like she's also, I don't know if that's a typo or she has, okay, never mind.
Okay. Anyways, hi. I'm Jamie, the founder of Gays Against. And
So they're censoring the word, wow, crazy. I mean, I get it. It makes sense. You got to do what you got to do. But this is just how far we've come, right? And it looks like this guy, where does he stand on the issue? What's he got going on here on the right side?
we're here to represent the gay and trans community, that we stand against this. The mass majority of our community stands against this. And they're
going crazy with the sirens and stuff already, trying to drown them out. This is crazy. But no child is born in the wrong body. Okay, so he's not a protester. He's legit. He's sane. He is a sane, rational being, I suppose.
giving us a bad name, and we see ourselves in these children.
We'll try to have some conversations. The siren makes it difficult, obviously.
The siren makes it difficult. That's the point. They got the umbrellas. They got the sirens. Let us never forget the squeaky pig toys as well. Shout out Rebel News for capturing one of the most deranged group of protesters I've ever seen with the squeaky pig toys. But moving on.
But we'll do our best. See, now that they've got them distracted, we can talk to some people. Shout out to Jamie for sacrificing herself back there so we can go have some conversations. She jumped on that grenade for us.
You're your kid's on puberty blockers?
My
here
extended
she is.
family is on puberty blockers.
How old are they, if you don't mind me asking?
They started puberty at 11, and they didn't
So I don't know. This music in the background might get copyrighted too. Perhaps I don't know.
want to have breasts. They didn't want to have.
Should I even mention? You know what? Let me go back. I'm sorry. I'm getting sidetracked. But this is the woman from the intro. Let's see. Let's listen to the whole story. My bad.
They started puberty at 11, and they didn't want to have breasts. They didn't want to have. And it's a pause. It's reversible. Puberty blockers are reversible. It's a.
Okay, so first of all, I did say that 14 sounded a little bit late, so she did address that. That makes sense, okay? But she's already regurgitating the talking points of course this is reversible. It's safe. It's reversible. And they're not telling you that you're going to be on a lifetime of pharmaceuticals.
It's a pause, but
It's just a pause. It's like a stop sign. It's like, pausing your music on Spotify. Same thing, bro.
our family member has been trans since 4. Say coincidentally you felt like you were a girl, but you were in a man's body.
They were trans since they were 4. What planet are these people on?
Force you to get puberty, hair, underarm hair, Adam's apple when that's not you, and you grow in that body. These puberty blockers allow these children to not have that body because that body for them is death.
Okay, so I guess she's getting a little bit of credit for actually talking. She's wearing this weird mask, but she's willing to talk. She's not screaming them down. She's not, she hasn't, she's not displaying her possession like some of them do. So she's talking, although it's all absolute nonsense. Oh, well, what if you didn't, that's not real. You have been tricked into thinking that if you don't want to have facial hair or an Adam's apple, puberty is uncomfortable for 99.99999% of adolescents. That's just part of it. That's how it goes, right? I mean, is that new to anybody that puberty is awkward? Just because it's awkward doesn't mean you're in the wrong body and you should just start taking these drugs and slicing your body up. It's absolute insanity.
So the first claim, puberty blockers are reversible. How does that work? How are they reversible?
It's a pause. Because what a puberty blocker does is it pauses the puberty process. There's 5 stages of puberty, and so basically it pauses it. So the minute they get off of the puberty blockers, their body continues in their biological puberty.
The minute they get off the blockers, their body continues. I am not buying that for 1 nanosecond. No way.
So out of 100 kids, how many of these kids do you think come off puberty blockers, and when do they come off of them, do you think?
The only kids that are really that are trans and not, experimenting or anything, they go through with it.
Yeah.
And just let's remember for a moment that this is fairly new in the grand scheme. I don't want to date myself here, but when I was in school, there was no talk of this. Even when I was in college, there was no talk of this. In San Francisco, of all places. So if I'm in college in San Francisco some years ago, and it doesn't even exist. There's some drag queens and, weird San Francisco party animals and stuff, Castro, Halloween in the Castro, all that sort of thing. But nobody was pretending that they were the opposite sex or gender, whatever you want to call it. And nobody was especially forcing you to believe what they were thinking, because at that point in time, they didn't even think that. They were just having fun, sort of, wearing women's clothes or whatever. It wasn't this extreme. It was just a fun thing that, look, I'm not here to knock anybody's habit. If that's what you want to do, I like to play golf, I like to watch basketball. That's fine. I wouldn't want anybody to tell me I can't do that. So if you want to, put on heels and dance on a stage at a 21 and over club in San Francisco, so be it. But nobody at that point in time, which we're talking about like a decade ago, was forcing you to believe that they were the opposite sex and that kids are doing it too, that it's possible for a kid at 4 years old to just, tell you. I mean, again, it goes without saying, we beat this into a paste, but you wouldn't let a 4-year-old, you wouldn't let a 17-year-old, in most cases, get a face tattoo. You wouldn't let a 17-year-old, you're not supposed to let a 17-year-old drink beer and smoke pot. You got to wait until 21 to do that. But for some reason, these people, they go all in. And I don't know who's behind this one. I don't, if you want to talk about the Democrats or Soros or I mean, I don't know who kicked this. Actually, you know what? I take that back. Just thinking about it right now, I am going to say that Caitlyn Jenner is largely responsible for this movement, and then goes on Fox News and says that it's gone too far, even though Caitlyn was the first person to make it mainstream. I was a gold medal athlete in 1968. Now I'm 70 years old, and I know that I've been a woman the entire time. It's your fault, Caitlyn.
Yeah, they stay on them.
They stay on them until they get onto cross hormones, which are not reversible.
So therefore, it's not a pause. It's just
It is a pause.
stopping puberty.
No, it's a pause because they can get off of them and continue in the regular biological puberty. So
Well,
it
they
is
could.
a pause.
So the
no
truth
way.
is that.
But
sure,
it's their
if it-
decision,
Okay, so
right?
There's no way this lady thinks that you're going to be on puberty blockers for 3, 4, 5 years and then come off of them and then you go through puberty. So if you start taking them at 15, no, 15 is too late. If you start taking them at 10 and then you get off them at 15, you're just going to go through regular puberty. It's impossible.
If I
just
my
make my
child,
counterpoint?
Let me finish for a second.
All right.
If our children want to grow breasts and hips if they're a trans boy, they have that option. They can always get off the blockers, and they don't want to because they're in the wrong body.
This lady's insane.
And so, go ahead to ask me your question.
Okay, so sure, if a child went on puberty blockers for 3 months or so, came off, not too much harm done, right? Puberty would resume.
It would even presume if they went on for 2 years, it would still resume.
They
Their
would have
breasts
lost.
would start to grow.
They would have lost out on 2 years of development.
No,
Like
they
these
would.
boys that go on puberty blockers from the age of 12 to 17, for example, they end up with a micropenis
Are
for
you,
life.
are you talking? No, they don't.
Yeah, they do.
No, they don't.
Well, sure they do.
You're saying that it just resumes,
Based
and
on
there's
that.
no
She
and there's
doesn't
no
know.
damage
She has
done.
no
What
idea
is your
what she's
basis for
talking
saying that?
about.
If you don't mind me asking.
Because I work with our pediatricians, and I've worked with multiple pediatricians.
Oh, yeah. The pediatricians in this weird medical establishment that's claiming all of this is real, those pediatricians that probably moonlight at Planned Parenthood, none of these people can be trusted. That much is obvious.
On that, and that's scientific evidence that they provide.
Science.
So you're not
Where's
aware
your
that these
information?
boys end up with a micropenis for life?
Are you talking about trans boys, or are you talking about biological boys
It doesn't
I'm
make any
talking
sense.
about males.
that get onto the puberty blockers?
That's right. They end up with a micropenis
She's
for
trying
life.
to put her
They
mask
probably
back
want
on.
that. They don't want a penis. They want a
No,
vagina.
but puberty doesn't resume at 17. Those years are
So
gone.
here's what happens
Those years
with
are
the
gone.
boys. You're talking about a biological boy who wants to be a female, right? They do need at some point in time to have penile growth. So their pediatrician and their endocrinologist will work with them on that, because in order to have a
Oh, will they?
successful vaginoplasty,
Yeah.
they have to work together with their endocrinologist. Yeah, they do.
No way. Is this grown woman pretending that vaginoplasty is like, what? You're gonna.
So do you know what ends up happening
Have
to
you
these
have
boys?
you met with a pediatrician?
Hold on.
Have you?
Let's have it back and forth here where you talk and then I
Yeah,
talk.
okay.
Let's do that.
Go ahead, let's do
That's
it.
like what we call a conversation. Yeah?
I'm aware of a conversation.
All right. These boys, when they grow up and they have this 12-year-old's penis as a 17 or 18-year-old and they want to get the vaginoplasty done, because it won't grow anymore, they end up cutting out a piece of their colon or a piece of their stomach to form the lining of the neovagina.
Oh, this is absolutely gruesome. Does this woman actually think that's gonna work? Now, look, I don't know this guy, Billboard Chris. Again, shout out James. I know James, but I don't know this guy, Billboard Chris. He seems like he's got it together, right? It seems like he's well researched. I don't know. I didn't fact check him, but everything that these advocates are saying is absolutely off the wall, tinfoil hat, flat earther, insane stuff. And then he comes through with the facts, however disgusting, and she's just going to say, well, that's not true. Talk to the science. No, lady, you are absolutely delusional. But that's the whole point, right? And that's the whole point. And that's what I always say every single week on the Unauthorized Opinions podcast with Andrew Says, or is it Andrew Does? I guess it depends on the platform, is that once you can convince a certain portion of the population that a man can magically be a woman, or a boy in this case can magically be a girl, you have complete control and they will buy anything at that point. And this woman has clearly bought all in. She bought the lot. She bought the farm.
Doesn't matter.
This is
It
exact-
doesn't matter.
that doesn't
they want
matter?
a vagina. No, it doesn't matter.
think
Whatever
that's fine?
surgical, yeah, of course. Whatever surgical procedure they need to have a vagina to make them happy is in the medical community's
Insane.
decision. It's not yours.
Oh, I see.
It's theirs.
Ad incoming.
All right.
Hope I can skip it.
Take off the mask.
At least it's not a political ad.
She may be.
All right, you guys, let's take a quick second to teleport over to Laguna Beach to talk about today's sponsor, AmmoSeek. I know many of you guys are sick and tired of searching for ammo. When you find it,
right? I'm getting
prices
the
are just
YouTube ads
jacked
on top
up
of
through
his
the roof.
ad read.
That's why I'm so proud to partner with AmmoSeek. AmmoSeek is an
Sorry,
incredibly
James,
helpful
I gotta-
comparison
I gotta-
shopping search engine for guns, mags, ammo, reloading supplies. They update the results in real time, so if you see it on let's get back into the video.
I just
right.
believe everyone has the right to receive medical care, regardless
Right.
of how they identify.
Okay. So do you think a 10-year-old...
All right, sorry, James. I had to skip through the ad. You know what I'm saying? Respect. Tell him to hit me up. I could use it. I need a sponsor. You know what I mean? Black Rifle Coffee or AmmoSeek or whatever. Hit me up.
For example...
And now, just for the record, it looks like they're talking to some sort of Antifa bot, some weirdo with a mask on. Let's go back just a couple of seconds and get the full scope.
Medical care, regardless
Right.
of how they identify.
Okay. So do you think a 10-year-old, for example, can consent to sterilizing themselves? Do you think they can understand that decision when they're 10 years old and still believe that a big fat man in a red suit flies through the sky at lightning speed, comes down their chimney and leaves presents under their tree?
I think that's a loaded question.
Do you think children can consent to throwing away their future sexual function?
If they're at an age at which they understand their own identity, yeah.
What age is that okay?
I don't know, I'd say about 15, 16.
You would be against any form of transitioning.
Okay, so we know 15, 16, this person, this they, them, or whatever, the Zimzer says that 15 or 16 is the age of where they can consent to mutilating their body, right? But we all know that if that very same person says the age of consent is 15 or 16 for regular heterosexual relationships, that would be frowned upon, and they will be looked at a lot differently, in my humble opinion. Now, of course, there's going to be people say, oh, well, in some states the age of consent is 16 or whatever. But I think overall we can agree that it's weird when you say 15 or 16 is the age of consent for a regular, traditional, heterosexual relationship. But when you're talking about this T stuff, this Transformer stuff, nobody bats an eye. Actually, that's not true. Actually, loads of people are batting an eye. Mine are batting. My pearls are clutched upon this.
Before 15, 16, is that correct?
If the parents consent to it, then, yeah. I think they should be allowed to.
At any point or just 15, 16?
At any point.
Okay, so if they, let's say 7 years old, parents say it's okay, go for it?
It's their kid,
It's their kid, so surgical transitioning. Just to confirm, I'm not like a yes for you?
Not necessarily surgical, but...
So you can tell this person, this shim, sure, they, them, zimzer, is sort of thinking about it right now. Like perhaps this person had never really thought about it before, and he's trying to get to the bottom of it very respectfully. At 7 years old, do you think this is okay? And they're like, they've painted themselves into a corner, and now it's kind of coming down like, wait a minute, this doesn't really make sense, but I'm going to go with it anyways because I'm already dug in way too deep.
Maybe hormones if they'd like that.
What if a parent consented to abusing their child? Would that be okay?
Well, that's just against, human rights in general,
So we agree that we shouldn't give parents the right to abuse their own children.
Yeah, but it depends what your definition of abuse is.
Well, I would say that altering the biology of a 10-year-old, destroying their future sexual functions, sterilizing them, cutting off their body parts, I'd say that's abuse.
Boom. Roasted.
Personally.
All right, well, that's your opinion.
Yeah.
You disagree with that?
No comment.
Take off the
I'm
mask.
getting so many ads. I'm getting the same ad too. I think it's because I'm pausing too much. Am I going to upgrade?
It's our children's decision to
Right.
work with their medical providers, not yours.
Do you mind if I ask you how young you believe that children should be able to surgically transition their gender or start the process? How young, in your opinion? Is
How
that okay?
young?
Would you be okay with it at 5 years old?
No, of course not. They're
You'd be-
children.
You'd be okay with 11 because they're not children?
No. Surgery. So let's classify surgery, okay? There's a lot of different surgeries. So
That's the problem.
we have a 13-year-old trans friend, biologically a female who's transitioned to a male.
She doesn't even know.
He wasn't aware of his identity, so he started to develop breasts just before he had the puberty blockers. So now he doesn't want those breasts. So he's
He's 14 right now, and he doesn't want.
14, and he wants the breast tissue removed from his top.
Okay. And you'd be okay with that?
I would.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they know what's best for them.
Yeah.
Okay.
My 13-year-old's pretty clear.
Yeah, but at the very same rate, again, does everybody remember, everybody, whoever I'm screaming into the abyss, the woman who got the word Drake tattooed on her forehead, right? If a kid said, I love Drake so much, I want to tattoo this man's name on my forehead, and the parent said, yeah, I mean, it doesn't make any sense. And that's just the same, because it's basically ruining your entire life. And maybe not even as bad, because you can, I get a, tattoo removal, as painful as I hear it is, that's possible. But once you do this, there's no going back. In fact, there's really no going forward, because do I need to explain the science? I can't do it. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a biologist. So I can't say I don't know.
13-year-old is pretty clear.
Sure.
I know. They don't go to school camps because they're embarrassed about their breast tissue because they are boys. So, but as far as like bottom surgery and stuff, like I actually think that they should be adults. My opinion.
What if the parents object?
Oh, okay. So you can get your breast cut off when you're, a teenager. But if you're going to do the bottom surgery, then you have to wait until you're an adult. It's nonsensical. It doesn't add up. It's all over the place. None of it makes any sense. And again, whoever planted this seed deserves what they have coming.
Do it.
Parents object to children being gay, and they're still gay.
Also, you think this is the same thing? As being
Yeah,
gay?
Absolutely.
You think altering a child's biology, sterilizing them, cutting off their breast
It's not
tissue is the same thing as
sterilizing
being
them.
gay?
They're choosing
Of
to
course
not
they're being
have that body.
sterilized. Don't you think that's something we should be getting answers to?
I wouldn't necessarily say it's sterilizing them. Like, what is exactly being sterile about it? They
Well,
could
that's what
have
happens
kids.
with puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones.
No, I think they would be able to have IVF, or like the medical community is so advanced now that they would probably be able to have kids. I mean, if all else fails, adopt.
No, they
They're
can't.
not
And if you look at the
sterilizing.
consent forms that they sign from these children's hospitals, it says right on the consent forms that infertility is one of the problems here. Back and forth conversations.
But that's what you want, right? Like, infertility is not a problem. It's a feature of this, right? That's what it's supposed to do. Like, nobody thinks you're gonna cut your junk off or slap on a penis made from your arm tissue and expect it to work. Anybody who thinks, even the most radical gender ideologue realizes that this weird Frankenstein body is not going to work. That's not a mystery to anybody. So even to say that, infertility is one of the problems, it's absolutely not a problem. It's a feature. That's the main point of this monstrosity.
It didn't look like that when you were talking to the lady before.
What did it look like?
Yeah, you were being very manipulative and also very changing what she was trying to say, and just I don't necessarily like your
What would
approach.
you say he was being manipulative about?
Well, what was your question? What are you trying to ask us? Because it's a separate conversation, right?
You were saying he's been manipulative. How so?
Well, first of all, you were trying to talk about trans people, like it's something new. Trans people existed way before any of these. Okay, but I'm explaining that.
What was he being manipulative about?
Can you let me finish what I'm trying
Please,
to say?
yeah.
Yeah, so that trans people existed before any of this ever happened. Trans people were eliminated from the world, and they've always existed. We're trying to affirm and support.
I'm here talking about the medical procedures going on.
Okay, so.
I don't
not
think
about how
the
you
argument was
identify.
that it didn't exist. I don't think that's. You didn't say that, did you? You didn't say that, did you?
No, well, I'm going with that. I don't care. I don't look. I just mentioned that I went to college in San Francisco, where basically all of this stuff is really birthed. No pun intended. But yeah, it didn't really. Yeah, okay, maybe a little handful of people, but this wasn't in the mainstream. You didn't have Jon Stewart, poking and prodding at politicians. You didn't have John Oliver going to bat for these people. You didn't have, you didn't have all this propaganda. You didn't have Planned Parenthood running ads about how they can just, we'll just give you this pill. It works like a stop sign. None of that happened. They're talking to kids about this stuff. When I was in K through 8, this wasn't even a twinkle in your mother's eye. No pun intended, right? So for this guy, it's always been here. give me a break, bro. You're trying to gaslight us. You're trying to rewrite history, and that's what they always do. They want to change history. Right now, what's the article that the Atlantic put out? We should have an amnesty with Rona. We didn't know exactly what was going on. We were all in the dark. They want to completely rewrite history. There's these 10-minute clips of the Democrat establishment puppets, talking about how they don't trust the election and machines can be rigged and Trump is fraudulent and all this stuff. And then they look back at you and say, if you question this, you will be banned from social media. And then the Time magazine runs articles saying, also there was a shadow cabal that quote unquote saved the election. So they're constantly trying to rewrite history. That's what this weirdo chubby looking guy is talking about is, it's always been here. No, it's not. That flag didn't exist. None of this existed, right? Until after Twitter, put it that way.
Well, gender dysphoria is real. So I frame this as there are children with gender dysphoria, and we need to help them with the best scientific method to do so, to feel comfortable in their bodies. But there isn't evidence to support medically transitioning children that this is particularly helpful for them.
See, even he's saying, so medically transitioning, which is just, it's jargon, right? And I shout out to this guy. He's very calm and level-headed, and he's speaking facts. But medical that's still a euphemism. And James is right to call it child mutilation, right? Because that's exactly what it is. There's no such thing as can I transition into Steph Curry and win 4 NBA championships? Can I transition into LeBron James and whine on the sideline? No, I can't do any of that. So him pretending that, and I will say though that medically transition is better than gender affirming care. So gender affirming care, boom, peak, the cream of the dystopian Democrat doublespeak crop. And then medically transition is a little bit lower. He's trying to talk about it using the proper medical terms, but it's still completely phony, right? No, nothing on this planet today in 2022 is going to actually change you, right? You can cut, you can slice, you can nip tuck, but the insides are going to remain the same. Of course, they're going to try to change it with a whole bunch of drugs, but I guarantee you, Dr. Eric here, it's not going to work, okay?
And we know from academic studies that have been done for decades into gender dysphoria that 80 to 90% of these children see their gender dysphoria go away when they go through puberty.
Do you disagree with that?
Yes.
Why is that?
Because a lot of kids, you're saying, there's a lot of proof that they, that after they go to...
No, he disagrees because he's been brainwashed and he's part of the Matrix. He's a foot soldier. He doesn't know what's going on.
Puberty, they're like fine and whatnot, but the point is they don't even have the language to really understand or maybe express things. And then also people transition through life multiple times. And so why are you saying that they're not able?
Surgically they do?
We're not even talking
hormonally they do?
Whatever's right between them and their doctor and the family. I don't know why other people are getting into other people's business. It's so silly to me.
I think the conversation probably revolves around when there starts to be, hormonal transitions, surgical transitions for minors. I think that's when people start to want to get involved in.
Yeah, but even outside of that, you guys are the ones that have been having parades for an entire month every year. And then you have, some other smaller parades in October and another one in August and History Month and Pronoun Day and Visibility Day and all that stuff. You guys are the ones pushing it in everybody's face. I don't know where it's coming from the top down, some weirdo man behind the curtain, but they're pushing it in your face, trying to sell it to everybody, and then they're saying, well, why do you even care about our business? Well, I didn't. You made me care, and then when I had an opinion you didn't like, you cried about it. That's what happened.
In what they call the protection of children. Of course, I understand that you guys disagree with that, but do you see what I'm saying there? Is what
affirming care saves lives.
Saves lives?
There
Yes,
she goes. She had the buzzword. She had the buzzword. Gender affirming care saves lives. She got the memo. Download received.
It saved my own child. I have a trans daughter.
Yeah, right.
She just transitioned. She's going to be 20, so she did go through puberty. And I would rather have a trans child than a dead child any day of the week.
Got the memo, talking points every single time. If you don't agree with this, then they are going to hurt themselves. If you don't agree with this, then you are pushing them to hurt themselves. It's all nonsense. It's the extreme extreme rhetoric, so to speak, right? And they do this with every single thing. If you don't wear a mask, somebody's going to die. If you don't get the shot, somebody's going to die. If you drive a truck, then we're all going to die in 10 years. Every single thing is always life and death with these people. They're so extreme. They're trying to get you to buy into their propaganda. And on the plus side, I will say it is so extreme because not enough people are buying it. They're going so crazy. They're flying off the handle. They're driving off the cliff. It's on a completely different level because most people are not into it. Most people understand that this is absolute nonsense, so they keep ramping it up more and more and more to try to get your attention, and they're just preaching to the choir. The way that they deal with things is never going to bring somebody who says, oh, I don't really think this makes sense, is never going to bring that person to their side and say, you know what, you were right the whole time. Never going to happen. They don't have the capacity to pull that off because they're just weirdo, bot sheep robots, and as long as the Matrix doesn't give them the tools to actually convince somebody, then they're never going to do it, right? They just got the download. They're going to regurgitate the talking points and pretend that they're rational and level-headed and that you are the crazy person, because that's another thing that the establishment has taught them to do, is to gaslight normal people into believing that normal people are the fringe minority and nobody's on board. You're a fascist. You're a bigot. You know what I mean? All the words in the book. That's not new.
So, like, just across the street here, we've got a few people who themselves have already detransitioned. We've got Chloe Cole. She's just turned 18. She doesn't know if she can ever have kids. She had her breast cut off when she was 15 years old. She went to her pre-surgical appointment when I think she was still 14. She might have just turned 15. And this was at a Kaiser Permanente in Oakland, California. And there were...
Wow, I didn't even know that. Of course, I've heard of Chloe Cole. She's all over the place. She's hanging out with Matt Walsh every day, going on tour, whatever, really stumping. And shout out to her, right? Her. But I did not know that was in Oakland, California. Shout out Oakland, California, my hometown. I was born and raised there. And it's sad. There was a viral clip, I believe, of that Kaiser talking about how they were transitioning younger people. And it's just crazy. It's obviously right across the bridge from San Francisco. So it all makes sense. I didn't know that. Learn something every day.
There were 12 other kids there at the same pre-surgical appointment for getting double mastectomies. And many of them were younger than her. So do you think it's appropriate that we're cutting off the breasts of 13 and 14-year-old girls when they've just suddenly identified as being trans in the previous year?
If a human wants to do it, let them do it. It's better than them killing themselves.
There we go.
Case?
Yes.
So this is the number one argument I always hear. If you go to a website called statsforgender.org and search suicide in the search bar, you'll find the truth about this. I don't want to sit here and battle with you, but it is true that suicidality is high.
And you think that site's a credible source because it has a .org?
It's a credible source because it's linking to the very few academic studies that have been done in this. So it is true that suicidality is higher amongst this cohort, and obviously we need to help people who are struggling with suicidal ideation.
I think
but we don't do that by altering their bodies to fix a problem with the mind.
Facts. Well, and this person does not like that, right? Because these people are always going to tell you that it has nothing to do with their mental state. So they'll tell you, if you don't let them do this, then they're going to harm themselves. But also, they don't have any mental problems. It's completely normal. They were just born this way, right? Do you see how that doesn't square? And she, him, her, shim, them, they is not liking this, obviously, especially because he's so calm, he's so collected, he's not doing anything crazy, and that drives them crazy because they want him to fly off the handle and then have that viral footage of some crazy right-wing anti-LGBTQ person, losing their cool. But it's just not going to happen because it's just not hard, right, to remain calm because your points all make sense, okay? So I didn't do the research, but I think this is kind of like his thing. I, in this particular case, trust that this guy, Billboard Chris, did the research. And it's not even like you need to do the research, right? I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. They're the ones that need to prove the impossible, right? We all know from just decades of living that, why can I not get my headphone to stay in? Jeez. Yeah, so he did the research, even though it's not really necessary, and you can tell that this little person is like, no, it's kind of making sense, but doesn't want to admit it, and then it's going to have to go home and really battle with this, which is a good thing, I believe.
I think you're allowed to have your own opinion.
People need to be affirmed and to be loved for who they are and not to be made to feel like they are wrong and they're sinning or they're going against Jesus Christ. Jesus preached love and acceptance, and what is happening with the twisting of the Bible is so wrong.
I'm not a Christian, but the Bible says in the very first chapter, male and female, he created them. So, sex is binary.
And as we know, books change all the time, and there's edits that need to be made.
Exactly.
So
Genesis was edited?
I'm saying it should be.
Oh, okay.
I guess for the purpose of this conversation, I think we were trying to keep it maybe more secular, so it could be a level playing field for a conversation. Is that fair to say?
Sure.
Okay.
So you asked me, what do I think about the claim that these kids are going to kill themselves? So we have academic studies into gender dysphoria going back 5 decades. They're all on my website under the studies section if you want to check them out.
Okay.
These aren't my studies, these are academic studies. All these studies show the same thing. Kids with severe gender dysphoria from a young age. If you look at the most recent study, for example, it followed 139 boys from the age of 5 all the way up into their 20s. Because this used to affect boys way more than girls, and this is completely flipped. But these were boys with severe gender dysphoria from a young age. This was before they gave them puberty blockers. 87.8% of these boys saw their gender dysphoria desist when they went through puberty. 64% grew up to be gay. I talk to a lot of gay men, and I've got a lot of gay friends. A lot of them tell me when they were little they had gender dysphoria.
I'm cool. I'm with it. I got gay friends. I have a black friend. That's what it kind of sounds like, bro. You don't got to qualify it, because you're never going to be able to out woke them, right? So you could say, oh, I grew up, I had gay friends or whatever. I know people in the community, and that's fine. I'm not knocking it, but it's you can never outdo them in that. So you don't need to qualify it, in my humble opinion, because even if you do, they're just going to say, oh, like they always say, the I have a black friend thing, right? Oh, well, that just means you're a racist anyways because you're counting your black friends. You can't win. As soon as you give them an inch, they take a mile. So that's just in my humble opinion that you shouldn't even do that. Don't give them the time of day because they won't respect that anyway. They're not going to say, oh, well, now I think you're pretty cool. It's all in the level because you have a gay friend. They're not going to say that. They're going to say, oh, what do you parade them around so you can pretend that you're not homophobic? You know what I mean? So every time you capitulate just a little bit, they're going to take that as weakness and try to ream you.
They wanted to play with the girls, they played with dolls, whatever. And if they were growing up today, they'd be getting given these chemical castration drugs, which is what puberty blockers are. Their bodies wouldn't develop as they should. They'd be given estrogen. They'd end up with a micropenis for life. And they would have irreparably harmed their bodies. Do you know who Marcy Bowers is?
No.
Okay, so Marcy Bowers is the president of the World Professional Association for Transgender Health. Marcy Bowers is a trans woman. Okay? Marcy Bowers did the surgery on Jazz Jennings at the age of 17, where they had to cut out some of Jazz's stomach to form his male vagina.
Whatever Jazz needs to do to have a great vagina. Okay. I support that.
Great. Wonderful.
I do. I support that.
A Zoom call with Marcy Bowers and Johanna Elsa Kennedy from the Children's Hospital of Los Angeles and a bunch of other specialists in the field of transgender health. Marcy Bowers, the president, admitted that literally none of the boys who went on puberty blockers at 10 or stage 2, which is the beginning stage of puberty when they start puberty blockers.
Biological boys?
Yes.
Or trans boys?
Yeah, boys.
You can't just say boys. Are you saying?
When I talk like science,
Okay,
so
then say
boys.
biological boys, because when you say trans boys...
It's kind of redundant, isn't it?
No, it's not.
It is redundant.
That's
He's
what
right.
this whole argument
All right, I'll
is.
play
You're,
along. So
in
biological
education.
boys, literally,
Exactly.
hold on. So literally
Ignorance
none
is
of
part
the
of this
biological
conversation.
boys who started on puberty blockers at 10 or stage 2, as adults, none of them have ever had any sexual function. They've never been able to have an orgasm.
Okay, so just really quickly here, you're not meant to ever get off nobody gets on puberty blockers and then comes off of it and says, oh, well, that was strange. I'm glad I waited, but I don't want to go through with this. It's not really for me. Actually, I want to go back to how it was. That's not how it's going to happen. That's not how it's meant to happen. That's not what's supposed to happen. So they say, oh, it's just a pause. You can start again. No, they're doing that to get you in. That's getting you to commit, right? That's you sort of, that's you putting down your first month rent deposit. You know what I mean? So you're stuck now. If you don't sign the lease at this point, then you're out that couple grand or whatever. So they want you to commit. And that's what that's about. Nobody's gonna get on those puberty blockers and then back out and say, woo, really glad I did that. I'm glad I waited, but I am the sex that I was born as, or I was assigned, or whatever terminology these people want to use. Nobody, that's not going to be the goal. And even if you tried to, they're going to still push you into, because you've already ruined it, right? You're not just going to hop off of them and then grow these big boobs and hips and you know, be fertile and ready to have a kid. It's not going to work like that. It's just not going to work like that. And that's obviously the example I'm using is for women or girls, but who knows what happens? I mean, he's talking about the micro penis and all that stuff. So who knows what happens? You're going to have these like weird guys and they, you know, I don't know, but the point I'm trying to make here is once you get on those things, they're not going to just let you off and go back to normal. No, that's your commitment. You're going all the way through at this point.
So do you think, my question is...
That's not true.
This is from Marcy Bowers.
No, it doesn't matter.
The president of WPAL.
I've spoken with men w'ho've had that surgery, and they have orgasms. So...
Men. I'm talking about kids.
I'm talking about trans people who've had the surgery who have orgasms.
When did they have the surgery?
Probably as adults.
Final seconds. Klug looking for more. Fades, fires.
They really want me to go to a Suns game.
In the United States, we obviously protect youth. And we've had a history of protecting youth. Look no further than not being able to see a rated R movie under the age of 18 in many theaters. This is a lot more serious than these things. This is a lot more serious than tattoos. It's a lot more serious than all of these. These are life-altering decisions. So do you see kind of why people have a problem with the transitioning of children when that almost should be a last resort type thing in possibly adulthood? Do you see where people are coming from there, or no? You don't?
No, not really.
Okay.
Let's back it up.
Okay, which surgery?
Children.
I'm talking about kids who started on puberty blockers at 10 or stage 2. As adults, none of them have had any sexual function. Do you think a 12-year-old can consent to giving away their permanent adult sexual function when they don't even understand what that means?
I think you're basing this on lies.
I can show you the video right now.
That's all right.
This lady holding a poorly painted sign is saying that this guy who has clearly done the research is basing it all on lies. Lady, you're the one who's living a lie. It's so blatantly clear. I don't know how a grown woman even makes it this far through life and not realize that you're the one spewing the lies. You're the one that has been tricked by whatever entity behind the curtain that's pulling the strings. You're the one that has been tricked. You're the one that's now trying to trick children and claiming that, oh, I know men who've had the surgery. I have a trans niece and a trans nephew. It's just by pure coincidence, you, the advocate out here, has all those people, family members that you know. No, it's because you guys all flock together because you're, not all there. So it's obviously you. She's saying that this guy's based all on lies. And again, this doesn't take research. This doesn't take a rocket scientist. You can just go through your, 5th grade biology book. And again, I can't stress enough, growing up in the Bay Area, Oakland, San Francisco, where this stuff basically is born, maybe, again, no pun intended, because obviously these people, that's the whole thing, is like they don't want you to have any more kids. But I digress. That's a different tinfoil hat subject. When I was in kindergarten, many years ago, there was no gender non-conforming teachers or first grade. All the way up through college, this didn't exist. Okay. And the other guy, the chubby guy, wants to say, no, it's always been here. No, that's gaslighting. You're misinformed. This lady wants to say, you're basing this all on lies. No, you are the liar. You are the one that has been tricked, and you're dug in too deep that your pride won't let you realize that you've been tricked, and now you're spewing those same lies for this weird sexual agenda. And again, we always know that this weird sexualization of children, or I guess in this case, desexualization, never happens in the regular traditional way. It just never happens. You would never take an 8-year-old boy to the Crazy Horse and show him what a titty bar looks like. You would never take a little girl to, you know what I mean? You wouldn't do any of that stuff. In fact, it would be frowned upon. You would be sent to jail immediately. But because it's in this weirdo agenda that this establishment wants to push, more so than the electric cars, more so than the communism, they want this the most, because once they get this one, this is the big ask. So once you get this one, you get all of them, right? This is the home run. This is the grand slam. So after you got this, all of the rest of it falls into place.
I need to see your videos.
It's Marcy Bowers.
It's okay.
Okay.
You don't want to. You don't need to see it.
If an adult decides to transition, yes, they have some sexual function. I'm talking about when they give kids puberty blockers at Tanner stage 2. When they grow up in adulthood, they aren't able to.
These children have very high suicide rates who are not allowed to transition.
Here we go.
I hear this all the time.
So what she's saying is, I'd rather have a live trans child than a dead whatever you're proposing.
I got the message received. Death is upon us. If you do not let them cut off their junk, they will die. Beep boop, beep boop. Same thing. Death. If you do not obey, then everybody will die. Eat the bugs. Live in a pod. It's ridiculous.
It's a life and death matter.
Yes, that is the coercive manipulation that is always used.
Do you have a trans child?
And it is true that suicidality is...
And here we go. And she's also asking, do you have a trans child? Do you have a trans child? Of course she has one. And this lady has one. They all have one, right? Because they're like accessories. It's a very Hollywood thing to do. But she's trying to go into the no uterus, no opinion argument. So first it was they're immediately going to harm themselves if you don't agree to this. And then it's, well, you don't have one, so you don't know. It's the same argument. It's always the same thing with these people. And they're just so delusional. It's insane. Like, I do ask myself, always with the, malice or incompetence, but it's like these people are just too far gone. And I don't know how you make it this far and like not even think about this. You don't realize that this just happened in the past 5 or 6 years. Yeah. Well, there's always been intersex, blah, blah, blah. Sure. But it's become a movement. It's become a cool thing to do now. It's in the news and men are now getting Woman of the Year. And if you say that the man who won Woman of the Year is actually a man, then you get banned off Twitter. I would never say that though. I would never say that. I know that it's all about, however you identify. Of course, I've been identifying as 7.5 feet tall for a decade now, and I can't get the Golden State Warriors to call me back.
Higher amongst this cohort. It's higher among kids with autism. It's even higher with kids with autism. It's higher among kids with anorexia. It's higher among kids with personality disorders.
What's your point?
But with these other conditions, we don't affirm a girl with anorexia and say, yes, sweetheart, you're overweight. Let's give you liposuction.
Anorexia is different. Anorexia
this is the only condition in the world where we accept the self-diagnosis of a child.
No. This is not a disease. I'd rather have a trans child, any trans child who's alive, than whatever you're proposing. It's dead. And that's what the ultimate
How many of these
argument.
kids are killing themselves, I wonder?
Which trans children who are not allowed to transition have a very high suicide rate.
You're telling me there's an epidemic of suicides going on?
Of course.
Based on what?
We existed and thrived.
Based on facts. Based on facts.
Well, I can tell you the facts.
What facts are you talking about?
I'm talking about scientific facts.
What's your basis for saying that?
When trans people exist.
We don't even know the effects that these hormones have on our brains as we develop. We don't know the effects that the cross-sex hormones have on our brains as we develop. This whole thing is an experiment on kids. These puberty blockers have never been approved for the purpose that they're being used on these children. They were approved for endometriosis in women, uterine fibroids, prostate cancer in men. Same drug given to pedophiles in the past to chemically castrate them. But they're being used off-label because they happen to stop puberty in these children. Because it stops the pituitary gland from releasing a couple hormones, which in turn generate testosterone and estrogen. And we've got all these kids now, mostly girls, who didn't have gender dysphoria when they grew up, but they're 12, 13, 14 years old. Now they identify as boys.
Really quick. I wanted to know if you guys disagreed or agreed with anything that he had to say.
There is no really quick. Disengage.
Oh,
you don't want to
disengage.
Pretty typical,
it's
right?
Over.
We're talking science.
It's over.
We're talking facts.
Run away.
They can't handle that. So people come over and their only tactic ever is to try to stop the conversation.
Facts.
My name's Scott Nugent. I'm a 49-year-old transgender man, lesbian who medically transitioned from a woman to a man, or woman to a trans man, right?
People saying either transition your child or let them die. What would your response to that be?
Reply to that with the truth, with the absolute truth. And the truth is this, is all 7 studies that were ever done that said that it helped children medically transition, that it was some miracle cure, has either been retracted or modified. Either retracted with it doesn't help anything, or modified with, we don't have enough people in the study to make any kind of judgment on that. From that perspective, it's false. They don't know if it increases suicide or it doesn't. What we do know is the only long-term study that was done from 1973 to 2003 in Sweden that followed 324 medically transitioned adults, and it found what we know in the medical or in the transgender community, which is the highest point of suicidal ideation, which is the study found, is 7 to 10 years after. It's not before. So after you medically transition.
You say you want to follow the science, but you don't want to read the science.
I don't want to read your bullshit science. No, I don't. I think it's bullshit science, and I don't give a shit. I know it's bullshit science.
All right, you don't have the right to do that.
Back the out. You're not going to touch us.
All right, so of course they're going to get violent. Shout out James Klug. I was actually hoping, I mean, it does say part 1 right in the title. So I was actually hoping for, talking with child mutilation advocates, part 1 with Bill Warker. So yeah, I was hoping for a couple more people, and it looks like he's got that coming on the way. So we're looking forward to part 2 to see what There we go. Sorry. Wait, why would I? There we go. Okay, we're back center. Yeah, so I was hoping that we would hear from a couple more people, and it looks like that will happen. So shout out Klug, shout out Billboard Chris. And it's funny, you can watch these people. He leaves you, hanging off the cliff there with the violent protesters and stuff. It's very predictable. And of course, they talk about follow the science, but they don't mean that. What they mean is obey our weirdo commands. It has nothing to do with science. We can learn that from Rona. We can learn that from climate catastrophe. We can learn that from this topic here. We know that none of it's real, but they're going to push it anyways, and they're going to push it even harder and call you more names because you still, no matter how many times they push it, you still don't buy it. And it does remind me of that Atlantic article that we're seeing floating around today about how they just want to, have amnesty with all the draconian mandates. And we should just forget about that. We're going to rewrite history once again. And I guess that's it. We look forward to part 2. Subscribe, like, share, comment. Did I get them all? I don't know. See you guys next time.